Your mind never stops. It thinks while you eat. It thinks while you drive. It thinks when you're trying to fall asleep. It even thinks when you don't want to think at all. And there comes a point where all that thinking stops being useful and turns into a prison. A prison with no bars. One you built yourself, thought by thought. What I'm going to give you today isn't breathing techniques pulled from some app. It isn't generic advice you've already read in 1,000 places. These are 5 concrete things, backed by science and by thousands of years of human wisdom, that actually work when your mind refuses to go quiet. Stay until the end, because number 5 is the most powerful of them all, and the most ignored. Number 1. Write down what's eating you alive. A mind in chaos is a mind full of things it hasn't processed. Thoughts that come in, circle around, and never leave. And the problem isn't that you have those thoughts. The problem is that you let them live in there with no way out. Writing down what you feel is not some teenage diary exercise. It's one of the most studied tools in psychology for regulating the nervous system. When you take a thought out of your head and put it on paper, it stops being a vague threat floating around your mind and becomes something concrete. Something you can see, examine, and release. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in the world, and he still found time every single day to write down his thoughts, not to publish them, just to empty himself. What we know today as meditations was never written for anyone but himself. And that tells you everything. You don't need to write well. You need to write honestly. Number 2. Move your body, even when you don't feel like it. When your mind is in chaos, the last thing you want to do is move. And that is exactly why you have to. Exercise isn't just for the body. It's the single most powerful intervention that exists for a brain in distress. When you move, your body releases BDNF, a protein neuroscientists literally call fertilizer for the brain. It lowers neurological inflammation, it regenerates connections, it rebuilds the very brain you think with. But BDNF is only half of what's happening. The moment you start moving, your body also floods your system with endorphins, your brain's own natural painkillers. They blunt pain, they lower stress, and they lift your mood from the inside out. This is the chemistry behind what people call the runner's high, and modern neuroscience keeps confirming it. The calm you feel afterward doesn't come from ignoring the problem. It comes from changing the biological state you face it from. You're not talking yourself out of the storm. You're changing the brain that's standing in it. It doesn't have to be an hour at the gym. 20 minutes walking outside, with your phone put away, does something no seated meditation session can do in the same way. It pulls your body out of the paralysis that stress locks it into. Epictetus said, "The body and the mind are one. That to neglect one is to neglect the other." And 2,000 years of modern neuroscience are proving him right. Number 3. Stop feeding the thought that's hurting you. Here's something uncomfortable, because it takes honesty to admit. A large part of the storm in your head isn't being done to you. You're doing it to yourself. The mind has a powerful destructive habit called rumination, taking a painful thought and turning it over and over and over, as if thinking about it enough times would somehow solve it, and it never does. It only makes it bigger. Every time you go back to the thought that hurts you, every time you replay that conversation, every time you imagine that worst-case scenario, you're feeding it. You're making it larger and more real than it actually is. Seneca wrote it with brutal clarity. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of the things stealing your peace today aren't happening right now. They're happening in your head, and your head is exaggerating them. The practice isn't easy, but it's simple. When you catch yourself ruminating, don't fight the thought. Just consciously redirect your attention to something concrete in front of you. The thought doesn't vanish instantly, but it loses power every single time you refuse to feed it. If this is actually helping you, hit that like button right now. And if you want to keep getting content like this every week, subscribe and turn on the bell. It helps me enormously, and it costs you nothing. Let's keep going with the two most important ones. Number 4, come back to the present on purpose. The vast majority of mental noise doesn't come from the present. It comes from a past you can't change, or a future you can't control. And while your mind lives in those two places, the only place your life actually exists, the present, is slipping past you completely. Marcus Aurelius wrote something I carry with me. Confine yourself to the present, not as spiritual advice, but as a practical instruction from a man who ran an empire and couldn't afford to lose focus. But before you can come back to the present, you have to notice that you've left it. And that noticing has a name. Neuroscientists call it metacognition, the mind's ability to step back and watch its own thoughts instead of being dragged along by them. It's the difference between being lost in a thought and seeing the thought happen. And this isn't soft philosophy, it's wiring. When you observe a thought instead of drowning in it, you engage the prefrontal cortex, the rational observing part of your brain, and that quiets the amygdala, the part that runs on fear. Researchers have found that simply naming what you're feeling, putting the storm into words, measurably calms the brain's threat response. The observer and the panicking mind cannot run at full volume at the same time. There's even a specific network in your brain that lights up when you drift into the past and the future and chew on your problems. Scientists call it the default mode network, and when it runs unchecked, it's tied to anxiety and depression. The moment you step back and observe your own thinking, you interrupt that loop. You stop being the storm and become the one watching it pass. So coming back to the present is really two moves. First, notice. Catch your mind in the act of wandering. That catching is metacognition. Then redirect. It doesn't require an hour of meditation. It requires 1 second of intention. Name 5 things you can see right now. Feel the weight of your body in the chair. Listen to the sounds in the room you're in. That's not a small exercise. It's literally switching your brain's channel from threat to the real moment. The more you practice noticing and returning, the less time your mind spends in the places that hurt it most. Number 5, accept what you can't control and truly let it go. This is the hardest of them all and the most transformative. A huge part of mental anxiety comes from trying to control what's outside your control. What others think of you, how things are going to turn out, whether that person will change, whether that situation will get better. And that's a battle you cannot win, because it doesn't depend on you. And yet you burn enormous amounts of mental energy fighting it every single day. Epictetus built his entire philosophy on this one distinction, and he lived it under the most extreme conditions imaginable. As a slave, he controlled nothing about his outer life. And still, he was the freest man in Rome, because he understood with absolute clarity what depended on him and what didn't. What depends on you, your decisions, your effort, your attitude, your response. What doesn't depend on you, the outcome, other people's opinions, other people's behavior, the weather, the economy, what's already happened. Letting go isn't giving up. It's refusing to spend your peace on battles that were never yours. And when you do it, when you really do it, the mind has nothing left to fight against, and it finally goes quiet. 5 things. Write down what weighs on you. Move your body. Stop feeding the thoughts that hurt you. Come back to the present and let go of what you can't control. I'm not asking you to do all 5 perfectly starting tomorrow. I'm asking you to choose one today, just one, and practice it consistently until it becomes part of you. Because a calm mind isn't a luxury. It's the foundation you build everything else on. Your health, your relationships, your work, your happiness, all of it depends on that inner state no one can hand you from the outside. As Marcus Aurelius said, peace isn't found in things. It's found in you. If you made it this far, thank you, truly, Hit like if you're taking something away from this video. Share it with someone whose mind is running at 1,000 miles an hour right now. And subscribe if you want to keep getting content that makes you think and grow every week. I'll see you in the next one.